Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest Blood Red podcast with me, Ian Doyle. Joining me today is our full-time Liverpool correspondent, both home and away, Paul Gorst. Hello.
Hello, Ian.
How are you?
Good. I'm very good, yeah. The sun is shining on this Friday afternoon and we bring news, or we bring reaction to news, I guess.
We certainly do. And also joining us today is, there is nobody else here.
Don't need it. With the front two as potent as this.
So, they've been coming up with excuses for I'm going to a stag do and stuff like that. But, I think CBA, and if you don't know what that means, look it up on Urban Dictionary, because then you'll get a
just realised with the sort of Anfield generic picture that we have above, should have really been changed for this one, shouldn't it? I feel like we could have had a more tailored, bespoke image for the pod.
Yes, for those who are not watching on YouTube, Paul is referring to a big screen behind me, which has a big image of a corner flag at Anfield, and it could have a picture instead of Mohamed Salah, who we'll get onto in a bit. He could be sat on a throne in the middle of a pitch.
A literal throne, that
that would be, Anyway, while we have been let down by some of our colleagues, there's one group of people who never let us down, and you know what's coming. It's NordVPN. To get the best discounts off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/bloodred. Our link will also give you 4 extra months, not 3, 4, on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, and the link is in the podcast episode description box, which you can find below. It's never above, it's below. It's not at the side, it's below. It's always below.
A 2-year plan?
Yeah, 2-year plan. Again, this is. Do you think of any 2-year plans that's been announced earlier today?
Well, as I was on my way to Cabe this morning, it was a little bit of a bolt from the, not necessarily blue, but I didn't expect it to be
more of a. What kind of blue would it be? Very light blue.
Yeah, very sort of faded.
Yeah,
it's powder blue almost.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are of course talking about the news that Mohamed Salah has signed a new 2-year extension at Liverpool, and it's sort of gathered pace, hasn't it, over the last, certainly since Wednesday when the news came out that a significant breakthrough had been made. And then Thursday and then Friday morning, on the back of filming Thursday night, he has been officially confirmed, and you were coiled, weren't you, like a cat on a hot tin roof at 8 a.m. this morning?
I was coiled to just getting out of bed, and then we got the message heads up saying something's happening at 8, and it was like, oh, flipping heck. I'd better get a
fiddlesticks.
Yes, fiddlesticks. And did that, and then we all headed off to Kirby at the Actor Training Centre, where you were in attendance along with me, and you got to listen to what Arne Slot had to say about Mohamed Salah's contract. So it's fair to say that you could tell that he was quite. He actually had some news, and he was quite happy to talk about it. And by all accounts, he obviously would have known about it for a few days, and he was more than happy to share his thoughts on the matter.
Yeah, he's always been very sanguine, isn't he, in his press conferences, and never looked like any of the speculation has affected him in terms of his preparation for games or anything like that. He's always been quite calm, certainly at the front of house, and he said that the reason for that is because I know a little bit more than what supporters know, a little bit more than what the journalists know, so I've always been quite calm about it. And I guess it's not really something that dominates his sort of agenda day to day. It's obviously Richard Hughes' remit to get that job done, and Michael Edwards a little bit above him to sort of discuss the terms and the figures and the money involved and all that sort of stuff. But Slot has had an input. How far that has gone, we don't really know, but he's obviously been keen for Mo Salah to stay, and I think he said that a few weeks back now, didn't he? And certainly at other points during the season. So I think with Van Dijk, I think him and Mo Salah have always been sort of more in than out, as you know, to sort of flip a Salah phrase on its head. But as the season has gone on without a resolution in sight, I think more and more have got a little bit concerned that it might not end up the way they think. But yeah, we're expecting Van Dijk to follow suit, aren't we, imminently? And it's massive news for Liverpool to tie down there. What has he been the top goal scorer every year for the last, 7 or 8 seasons? So huge news ahead of next season, really.
You wrote a piece yesterday on the inside story of how, we weren't exactly expecting it to happen on today, but we knew it was imminent, on how Mohamed Salah, Liverpool agreed a new deal with Mohamed Salah. Do you think it's been a clever game played by Liverpool to not so much make Salah wait, because I'm sure they would have sorted it soon as if they could have done it, but more that they've kind of held their nerve a little bit. They've not kind of shifted too much from what is a tricky situation for them? Because obviously, Salah's clearly one of the best players in the world. He could command realistically, he could command a lot of money. Well, I know he gets paid a lot of money, but he could command even more for what he's brought to Liverpool and the Premier League and just the game in general, wherever he went. But Liverpool have this policy, don't they, where they don't really want to offer too many contracts, if any, to players who are in the mid-30s, I should say. Not late 30s, yeah. You're in your late 30s, yeah?
I'd still say early to mid.
You're 37?
29.
Yeah, whatever. But obviously they've got this very strict financial model, which Fenway Sports Group, and it's worked well for them, let's be honest. You look at some of the players that they've let go at certain times, Wijnaldum and Mane and Firmino and players like that, where they haven't really improved after they've left.
Yeah,
I think it was interesting that Slot was talking about perhaps Salah's reached the maximum of his abilities in the sense of the absolute limit, which at 32, nearly 33 years of age kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's that Liverpool were quite keen to, there was talk that they were going to offer him a pay cut, but we're led to believe that that's absolutely not been the case. He's on at least the same amount of money that he's on now, but it's not compromised that financial model.
Yeah, I mean, that's something Liverpool have got to be careful of, isn't it? Because I think, at present, they're about 62% wages to revenue ratio, which I think UEFA are starting to sort of stagger rules where anything over 70 in the next couple of years gets frowned upon. I'm not really sure what the sanctions will be, but it's something Liverpool are going to have to be mindful of, given they are, not a whole lot of wriggle room there, 8% to sort of play with. So that's something they had to be mindful of. Also, as well, the fact that he's the highest paid player of all time at Liverpool. He's going to be 33 in June, and like you mentioned there, clubs don't make a habit of paying these sorts of figures to players whose theoretically best years are behind them. So it's one Liverpool have had to be really careful with and make sure that they can't make a mistake with this one, because if they did, say Salah drops off a cliff and he's nowhere near the player that he has been, and it's a sort of Casemiro situation that United have at the moment, where you've just got a huge earner on the wage bill without contributing too much. Liverpool can't really absorb those sorts of losses in the way that maybe a Chelsea can, or a Manchester City, or certainly Manchester United. So yeah, they have to be delicate, and they have to be sure that Salah is going to be able to contribute in the same way he has certainly this season and throughout the course of his Liverpool career. And Slot today, he made reference to it a few times. Really, he's convinced that will be the case. So if you can get Mo Salah at these levels for the next 2 years, then who knows what you're going to be able to achieve. And I think 2 years is a sort of victory for Liverpool, because had Salah signed for 3, you might have got 2 years at this level, and the third could be the one where he's significantly on the wane, where he's maybe coming towards his 36th birthday. But it feels like for the next 2 years, Liverpool will get Mo Salah at this level, and that means that they haven't got to worry about replacing him this summer. Maybe next summer his replacement signs for a year on down the line. But it's an issue that they've managed to kick down the road, and they will have their top goal scorer reporting for duty in the summer.
The interesting thing for me is that obviously there's this talk of Salah having to change as a player, but because he's in that age where you see it looks someone like Ronaldo's done it, and De Bruyne has struggled a little bit, although De Bruyne did have a lot of injuries, which has taken a lot out of him, and I think sometimes people forget that. But with Salah, he has changed his game over the past 2 or 3 years. You look at it, he's certainly become a lot more of an assist maker than just a goal scorer, and part of the reason for that is because he doesn't have the same pace that he had when he was 25, 26, 27. He can't necessarily just sprint past players, so he's having to find different ways of doing it. He can do the tricks now and again. I'm not saying he's slow. I'm pretty sure he'd beat me in a race. You know what I mean? But I do think that he's already been undergoing that change, so I don't necessarily think it'll be that difficult for him to adjust to being a bit older. Because while the legs might not have what they had, they haven't for the past 1-2 years, in my opinion. And the goal doesn't change, the size of the goal doesn't change where it is. And, he's gained what he's lost in terms of possibly pace and that kind of sharpness. He's gained in terms of his intelligence and experience, which is why he's able to get into positions to score the goals, and more importantly, get into positions to create goals, because that's the other thing that he's done. Yeah,
well, what is it, 22 assists this season on top of the 32 goals? It's incredible, really. And you're right, he's certainly become more of a creator, less of a sort of specialist dribbler, carrying the ball over large spaces, a large number of yards. I'm sure he's still able to do that from time to time, but his game has been refined, hasn't it? And I think he sort of relishes the fact that he is as much of a creator as a goal scorer these days. You look at those passes that he plays almost every game. The outside of his foot. He loves that pass, doesn't he? You look at his assist for Cody Gakpo against Man City, where he sort of lays it on a play from 2 yards out. And I think it has been a joy to watch, really, seeing how his game has been developed and refined over the years, and how he has looked to sort of stay ahead of Father Time catching up with him by adding new strings to his bow and modifying little bits. And maybe even, not necessarily next season, but maybe his last year at Liverpool, we see him more as a bit of an orthodox number 9, where he's not having to cover more ground in wide areas. He's just sort of staying in the penalty box and sticking away the chances to come his way. And maybe that's where his replacement on the right side of the attack sort of gets introduced into the mix. I'm not sure, but I think he's clever enough to be able to adapt and hone his game in the way that Ronaldo was, like you mentioned there. He was still, 38, scoring goals for United every week. And okay, you can argue the merits over he sort of came to rely on that too much, and he wasn't doing much else apart from that, and it did have a knock-on effect. But I think Liverpool would be able to counteract that and make use of Salah's ability to score goals, essentially, and using other players in maybe the position he's in at the moment. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's next in terms of how he continues to sort of just add little wrinkles to his game. But I think obviously we'll finish the season on the right of the front three, and then there's that prospect of him, playing with new teammates in the summer, because I certainly think Liverpool are going to be looking for a new forward option or two in the summer.
Well, that leads me nicely on to my next question, which was Slot spoke about Salah signing up, sends out a message not just to the fans but also to players at other clubs or prospective transfer targets that, look, we've still got Salah here, so probably unless you're playing on the right wing, it's it's good news, because you're going to be, that kind of year that you're going to be playing with one of the best players in the world, and that can only help Liverpool. But yeah, as you said, it does look as though Liverpool might be having a little bit of a change up front, but that has kind of tied down one major part, because ultimately, the discussions about Darwin Núñez could be going. Some people have said Luis Diaz. There's been talk about Diogo Jota, Federico Chiesa, but the one that everybody wanted to stay was Mohamed Salah.
Yeah, no, it's great news on that front, isn't it, in terms of planning? And I think I wrote in the column a few weeks back that whatever the decisions are now with these three, it's time to sort of make them, get them done. So either way what you're planning for the future, and we think now that all three have pretty much been resolved. Mo Salah literally signed a new contract, hasn't he? So that is sorted. We're expecting Trent Alexander-Arnold to move to Real Madrid, and we think that it's just about crossing the T's and dotting the I's now with Virgil's deal. So that is great news, really. Obviously not Trent, but it means that the recruitment department, Slots, Richard Hughes, whoever else is involved in that, can start planning for the summer. Obviously still got a job to do in the league, but it means that they will know what they've got to play with in terms of resources on the wage bill, in terms of finances for transfer fees. So it's been a really productive few weeks off the pitch. Obviously the Trent one is not necessarily the outcome that people would want, but I don't think it's necessarily a major shock either. So we'll wait and see official confirmation of that, but it does look like now there is a resolution to all three of these.
Just very briefly, just go a step away from Salah for a second. We'll look at Van Dijk and Trent. Van Dijk first. You spoke to him after the game at Fulham. That was the last game we were at, weren't we?
Yeah.
It seems like forever ago, that. At Fulham, where he did suggest that progress had been made. And that's then coming the same week that later on, obviously, the news from Salah, and then it's confirmed. We're pretty sure that Van Dijk's going to be confirmed sooner rather than later. And he wasn't exactly acting like somebody who was particularly bothered by stuff. When he bumped into at the AXA training centre a bit earlier on. But with Trent, he's obviously not gone yet, and he's still a Liverpool player, and he could still be playing. And just talking generally now about some of the criticism he seems to be getting for the prospect of him leaving. If he hasn't made his mind up, that's not really going to persuade him to stay, is it?
No, I mean, we had Paddy Pimblett on this podcast, didn't we, with Kiefer and Joe a few weeks back now, and he's been on Sky, hasn't he, calling him a lizard, which...
I thought that was only Pete Price could be called a lizard.
yeah. He's got the trademark on the lizard insults.
I wonder how many of our listeners know Pete Price is.
Yeah,
that's a good thing to
very
Google.
niche reference.
Get Googling.
But no, you're right. I mean, nothing's been confirmed with Trent, so until it is, I think you should probably just keep your counsel on those sorts of reactions and insults and whatever else. We are expecting him to go, and if that does happen, then people will have feelings about it, particularly one way or another, and that's fine. But like you say, if he hasn't made up his mind, then I guess some of the reaction might have made the reform. I hope not, because a lot of it is contained to social media. But yeah, let's just wait and see what happens on that before we send the jury out, shall we say.
There was a reason for me asking that. Just bring it back to the team at the moment. Is obviously Trent's out injured, and he plays on the same wing as Salah. And in the time that he's been out, Salah hasn't scored a goal, which is his longest consecutive run of games without scoring. It's only 4. It's not a massive deal for anybody else.
What was his last goal in open play?
Last goal from open play, was that Man City?
Was it that long ago? Yeah, that feels like it was ages.
No. He scored against Villa. Man City was after Villa, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I think it might be Man City because he scored against Newcastle. Was that a penalty? No, he didn't score in that game, did he? So.
The City game was before Newcastle, was it? Oh no, it wasn't. No.
City was before Newcastle.
City was before Newcastle. Yeah, you're right. So obviously he scores the penalties against Southampton. All merging into one now, isn't it? It's all just wrong.
Especially when we get to this stage of the season.
Yeah. So that's 7-8 games, maybe.
I think it's 7. I think it's just those 2 goals in the 7. But the point I was going to make is that obviously Trent started the last 4. Quansah obviously started the game against Newcastle in the League Cup final, where Salah for the first time in his Liverpool career didn't have a shot or create a chance. Curtis Jones played the last 2 games, did well against Everton. I thought we did okay against Fulham. It wasn't necessarily his fault that things went a bit wrong in that first half. But Conor Bradley comes on second half, and in the last 20 minutes, Salah's deliveries were more or less dealt with, weren't they, by Anderson. He did create before that a chance for Jota, by the way, but he was far more in the game when Conor Bradley was on, and with Harvey Elliott on as well. And no matter how good a player you are, if you're playing up front and you don't get any service, then he's going to struggle. So it kind of underlines what you've mentioned in the past, that the team is kind of built around creating the opportunities for Mo to either score or to create chances for other, which is why his numbers are so good. And just looking ahead with obviously Trent going, Conor Bradley coming back, he's going to be a good player for next season. But do Liverpool need a bit more at right back in terms of bringing in a new player? Because now that they know that Mo's going to be there, now they can plan for that right back area, can't they?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have absolutely no qualms if they sort of bet the house on Conor Bradley, really, and said he's going to be the new right back, and maybe you can use those funds for a Trent replacement in terms of creativity in midfield and other types of players, profiles and stuff.
Not worry a little bit that Conor's got a few injuries. He's had a couple of injury problems.
Yeah. I mean,
he's only a young player.
That is the I was just about to come on to that. Is the sort of major question mark around them, isn't it? I think that there are sort of fewer worries about his quality, because I think he's shown in maybe a little over the year that he's been in the Liverpool team semi-regularly. I think he's shown that he's a brilliant player with a massive future. But a lot depends on maybe Joe Gomez staying, doesn't it? And can he cover for Conor Bradley in that position when injuries do sort of rear their head? Because I don't want Jarell Quansah playing there too often next season, with respect to Quansah. He's a natural centre-back, and ditto for Jones, who's a natural midfielder. So, yeah, I mean, maybe it is an area for Liverpool to target, but
I don't necessarily think they have to spend big, though, do they? Because it's kind of...
That's the thing, is I think they're going to have to get creative with the incomings this summer, because they might need 4 or 5 or 6. They're not all going to be 50, 60 million players, are they? So at some stage, they're going to have to unearth a gem. They're going to have to get maybe take advantage of a release clause, maybe a contract situation, and bring in the players needed to sort of supplement the rest of the squad. Because I actually think there is going to be quite a bit of a turnover this summer. Didn't initially think it a few months back, but as it's started to go on, you start to see cracks in the squad here or there, and think that a few things do need addressing here. I'd love for them to sign an all-singing number 9 left back competition for Andy Robertson. I think they need another midfielder.
Goalkeeper's coming in already.
Yeah, and then that right back situation as well. So yeah, there is potentially a lot of work for them to do this summer. So that's why it's crucial that it looks like 2 of the 3 are going to be signing on for the new year.
And again, we've discussed this several times already this season on this podcast. In light of what's happened, or the speculation over Trent, Salah, and Van Dijk, is that Liverpool don't want to be in a situation where it happens again with some other players, and Konate is going to be in the last 12 months of his contract at the end of the season. Now, he's someone who apparently Paris Saint-Germain are looking at. So that Liverpool, it looks like they're going to have Van Dijk there, and we're led to believe that they're planning with Konate being there. There's 2. What do they do with Konate if he decides, I don't really fancy signing a new contract? Do they want to get burnt again? Not burnt, but do they want to have this situation? It just runs the risk of overshadowing what already is going to be a little bit of a new look team next season.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd argue that Konate would be more of a Trent than a Salah in terms of in prime years with interest from elsewhere. All the noises were that.
But at least they paid for Konate, though. That's the thing about Trent, is that I don't understand he's a homegrown player, but at least they're not missing out on a transfer fee they've already paid.
Yeah. But with Salah, we're led to believe that it basically come down to a bit of a straight shootout between Liverpool staying in Europe and being a major player in the European game, or moving to Saudi Arabia. With Konate, it'll be very different, won't it? Because he'll be 27, will he? And he'll have his boyhood team, I think, Paris Saint-Germain knocking at the door, maybe Real Madrid as well, looking to take advantage of the Bosman ruling as they've done so effectively in recent years. So
they can do one.
It's a tough one, isn't it? It really is. And we know that he's been offered the contract because he told us at the press conference in January. So that contract has been on the table since the start of the year at the very least. That is a really interesting situation. I'd like to see him stay. I think he probably deserves a bit of a pay hike because of his increased importance and influence in the squad. The standing has changed massively, hasn't it, since he come in as a bit of a young player, playing second fiddle to Joel Matip, and then sort of played his way into the team. He's become a real leader around the camp, around the group. You sort of see him, he always seems at ease, very confident, and is growing in stature. So, I think that's another one for Richard Hughes. A bit of contract whack-a-mole for him, isn't it, really? As soon as he knocks one down, another one springs up. So, rather him than us, I think.
I thought you'd said guacamole then.
No, whack-a-mole.
I'm thinking I'm hungry.
Dinner time, nearly.
Would you, guacamole, you're very much on board with that?
Yeah, not mad, yeah.
Yeah, so that's fine then. Yeah, just
on your burritos? On your
burritos?
No, not your burritos.
Chimichangas and whatnot.
What is it called?
Tortillas.
No, not
what are you
tortillas.
talking about?
Fajitas.
Oh, God, we got there eventually. Right. Well, they've got tortillas in them. Now, we've got some questions, or more statements. A lot of people quite happy that Mo Salah is staying. However, there is a question. That's from Barry McLaughlin, and he says, where does Salah rank in the all-time Liverpool greats? He says, Dalglish, Rush, then equal Gerrard and Salah. Now, again, I'll ask you this question, but only from players you've actually physically seen and what they've done in that time, because I think it's unfair to ask that for players you've not seen.
Yeah, I mean,
or not been in the prime, for example.
A few of my mates were having this debate the other week, actually, and someone mentioned Suarez being the number one. I think that there's a little bit of Stockholm syndrome at that time of period of Liverpool. I think a lot of them seem to remember it wistfully and dull-eyed. And
he was quite good, like.
I would say he was an unbelievable player, but that period, Liverpool didn't really win a lot, did they? And Salah's been in.
League Cup, wasn't it? Yeah,
Liverpool have won absolutely everything. So much so that they're going round again. How many League Cups have they won? Is it 2 or 3? They're hopefully going to win the Premier League again for the second time. So I'd put Salah above Suarez. I can understand the argument that Suarez was maybe more aesthetically pleasing on the eye and more of a gifted player, but Salah, for me, is just, Premier League era. I think only just about Gerrard sort of nudges above him, but Salah's got another 2 years to go. So if he walks away with maybe 3 Premier Leagues, maybe another Champions League, whatever it may be, I think you can start to make the case for him being number one in terms of certainly the Premier League era.
I think I'm trying to think about this and go, if you're talking about a top 4, I think Dalglish was a little bit before my time in his peak. He was getting towards the end when I started watching them. Rush, Barnes, Gerrard, Salah. you can sort them out between yourselves. I think they'd be my fault.
Well, Slot got asked this today, actually.
Oh, did he say? Who did he pick for his full?
Well, it was under embargo. But what I can say is,
be careful.
what I can say is there was someone who works at Liverpool who named Kenny Dalglish as their number one.
I'm pretty sure I know who that was.
So, Dalglish is, my dad always went on about Dalglish and how great he was, obviously before my time. But he tends to be the one that people put up there, isn't he? And then Gerrard is a shout. Some people say Souness.
Yeah.
Salah's, he's around the top 5. He absolutely has to be. Premier League area, he could still be number 1 for me by the time he leaves. And at the moment, I'd have him too.
Nabu said before, there's very rare that a team has genuinely the best player in the world, and there's been several occasions over the past 5, 6, 7 years where Salah for a time has been the best player in the world. Elaborate.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't so long ago, was it? They were talking about Salah being the best player in the world, and it depends.
The thing about the can I just do me the Ballon d'Or rant? Go on, I'll do a little Ballon d'Or rant, because basically it's like he's going to pay for the Ballon d'Or until Liverpool lose to Paris Saint-Germain.
Yeah, and
then it's like, no, it's going to be Vinicius Junior, and then they lose to Arsenal. There's some people saying Declan Rice should be it, and then on Wednesday suddenly it's the impronounceable Georgian lad. Go on, you know him, yeah. Now it's just become ridiculous. It's like, if somebody scored a hat-trick in the Europa League last night, they were probably going to be favourites for it. It's just, what happened next? It's like, so any of these good players, just do something the day before the award's been announced, then you're probably going to win it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't quite get the clamour to discuss the Ballon d'Or. It seems a very younger thing to do, maybe.
Ballon d'Or. Yeah. It's like, it's for fans who don't support teams, but support players.
Yeah, maybe. But Salah places a lot of stock in it, I'll tell you that.
Well, this is the thing about football as an international football. A lot of fans don't like it, but if you ask the players, they're all desperate to play for their countries.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about Salah is he's never shied away from the fact that he wants all the records for himself. He wants to be the best. He wants to be this. He wants to be that. And sometimes that is occasionally frowned upon in the team sport. But what it essentially does is drags teams that he's in up to the level that he wants to be at. And I think he can certainly make the case for that this season. He's been so determined to win the Premier League that he's gone flat out to do and scored 27 goals and put Liverpool right on the cusp of it. So this idea of a Ballon d'Or, I'm sure, has been a part of his thinking in signing a new deal, because if he shuffles off to Saudi Arabia, he's got no chance of ever winning that, has he? A lot of it depends on what he does in the Premier League, more so in the Champions League. And, see what he could do in the Africa Cup of Nations as well. Obviously, Egypt were beaten finalists in 2022, weren't they? I think they got knocked out in the last 16 at the last year. So, there's a chance of him doing something in that tournament as well. So, I think he will have factored all this into the thinking. I think let's give it another right old crack. And, we could be, a Ballon d'Or recipient. But it does feel as though his claims have cooled a bit since Liverpool got knocked out the Champions League, and I think a lot of that does speak to the sort of lack of attention that there is now, lack of an attention span, shall we say. And
sorry, did you say something?
Yeah, people only seem to remember what happened in the last 15 minutes. Something.
The other thing about Salah is that he's obviously committed now till 2027, which takes him to 10 years. For a player from overseas to come to any Premier League club, certainly a big one like that, where you've got to be at such a massively high standard to stay beyond 3 years, let alone 10. It is still unusual. It's very unusual.
Yeah,
I mean, I know someone's going to now say, well, what about this player, this player, this player, this player who've come from overseas, like Molby, Grobler. Lucas Leiva was there for 10 years. But
in a modern era, though.
It is very, very unusual. And it speaks a lot for just Liverpool. We go down to the training centre all the time. And, sometimes they have the ups and the downs. But it seems to be quite a nice place to work, regardless of whether it's football or anything else. I mean, we know the difference between working in a nice office compared to one that's in a bit of a mood.
No, it's a good point. And, it's probably one of the reasons Liverpool made the decision to jump, didn't he, and move away from Melwood, which was obviously an iconic base and so much history, steeped in history and all that. But you have to move with the times. And I suppose going to a workplace every day when, the building of it was worth 50 million probably has its perks, doesn't it? I know that they have an incredible sort of buffet selection there every day, don't they? Yeah.
I love the fact we both went straight to the food.
Yeah. So, I mean, that'll get me getting to work. I'll be getting in there on time.
It's a shame it's not quite as good at Anfield in the press box.
Yeah, maybe anyway, all the resources is ploughed into the players rather than the press.
Yeah. Should have taken a pay cut to pay for our food. Yeah, come on, man, do the decent thing.
But you're right also as well about the sort of longevity of the players. Certainly at that level, Salah's level, the best players in the world. Seems increasingly rare, doesn't it, that they stay at clubs for that long. And I've seen something recently. Might have been one of the comments on on my Facebook posts, and they said Salah deserves all the credit in the world for being at Liverpool, for committing his best years to Liverpool, never once seemingly really agitating to move, nailing his colours to the mast and deciding that he wants to be a Liverpool legend.
And putting up in the middle of that with the COVID 18 months as well.
Yeah, I mean, it has helped that he's come in around the time that Liverpool were really taking off under Jurgen Klopp. But he's done as much as anyone else to help that. And you look at, certainly players of sort of Hispanic origin, the dreams are often Barcelona and Real Madrid, aren't they? But never really felt like it's been that for Mo Salah. And
Real Madrid were interested though, weren't they? Very early on, the first couple of years.
There's been the occasional link, hasn't it? But it's never really felt like he was ever thinking anything other than renew with Liverpool 3 years ago and certainly this year.
At least it's not like Ryan Gravenberch's agent who's... Yeah, he had to backtrack a little bit there, didn't he, today? If anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, yesterday he put out... he did an interview, presumably the previous day, with Marca, and he said that, we'd love to play for Real Madrid at some point, and then he kind of clarified, I was talking about myself.
Yeah.
Because I'm... He's Spanish,
Spanish,
yeah.
Spanish,
yeah. So he was talking about himself, not Ryan Gravenberch.
Interesting the way the agents go on the record. Seems to happen a lot in foreign media than it does in English.
For us, yeah. I feel as though let's put out an olive branch, and if he wants to explain himself, he can come onto the maybe not the podcast.
Jose,
but he can pick up the phone or answer our messages. That would be nice.
Yeah. That was interesting. But I mean, Real Madrid not exactly short of a midfielder or two, are they?
No, but some of them are about 1,000 years old, like Modric, who's still playing.
40 Modric.
Is he 40?
Yeah.
I didn't see the game against Arsenal, but I'd imagine if he was playing, he probably looked it.
No, I mean, it was a fairly even game, really. Arsenal shaded it, but...
They won 3-0.
Yeah, I was about to say, if it wasn't for 2 worldy free kicks from Declan Rice, would have been a lot closer. So, but they're in the driving seat, aren't they now? Which is good news or bad news for Liverpool? I'm not really sure yet.
Shall we discuss that briefly? Because that's just led us onto it. I think it doesn't make any difference. I'll be honest. Don't think it makes any odds.
Do you not think Arteta will heavily rotate against Brentford tomorrow?
I mean, Arsenal could win all the rest of their games. Liverpool just need to get those 11 points. It's on them. If they don't get it, then, especially now with the boost of the Salah situation sorted, and we know the Van Dijk one, pretty sure it's going to be sorted sooner rather than later, I don't think there's any excuse for them now.
No, you're right. It would, I just don't want to see them limping over the line. I suppose it makes no odds.
Really?
Doing the title.
I'm glad you brought that up, because some people say, I think after they got beat by Fulham, another website, which maybe made up of an acronym made up of 4 letters, they said something like, a headline was like Liverpool limping towards the title as something, you know what I mean? It was like, no, they're not really, are they? They've literally, that's only their second defeat this season.
Yeah.
And at some point in a campaign, you're going to have a little bit of a wobble. Liverpool's problem is that it came in 2 games that were massively important to them. And one of them, you could argue they didn't deserve to lose against Paris Saint-Germain. Whatever happened in the first game. Against Newcastle, they weren't great. Against Fulham, they didn't really do enough to win, but they could have got the draw with what happened towards the second half. But Liverpool aren't limping towards the title, are they?
No, I mean, it's probably still too early to say. There's 7 games left, 21 points to play for. If there's 3 left to play and they lose 2 of the 3 or whatever, then I suppose that is limping towards the title. But we're still in an early-ish April, aren't we?
Well, I remember when 1983, when I first started going to the games, Liverpool were that far ahead. They lost 5 of the last 7 and drew the other 2. Still won the league by loads of points. I mean, they were 16 points ahead at one point, so not quite the advantage they've got now. But I wrote something earlier, yesterday, which was online earlier today and in the paper, that never before has a team been this far ahead with 7 games to go, not won it. Think with United in 2012 when they lost a 5-point lead to City, and one of the games was against each other.
Company got the winner.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, kind of turned it around. They drew with Everton 4-0 in the other game.
Yeah.
Was that game?
Yeah.
Still currently
4-1 up, Eddie?
I think it was 4-2.
4-2.
Yeah. Pienaar scored. Did Pienaar score? That's our producer. Do you remember that game, the 4-0? No? 2012. Sure, Pienaar scored.
He did, yeah.
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 It was 4-0?
4-0
At
at
Old Trafford? Yeah. Anyway, going back to Liverpool.
If you know your history and all that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, come on. Whatever. Yeah, but basically, teams that are that far ahead, since it's gone to 3 points to win, they've never, ever given it up. And sometimes they do just have a bit of a drop-off because they're that far ahead. You can't be expected to, maintain those levels when you know that it's human nature. I wrote this after the game before, so I'm just repeating myself. But yeah, it is that though, isn't it?
Yeah, even if it's just sort of an imperceptible drop-off or a subconscious one. Like Liverpool went into that Fulham game knowing victory would have took them 14 points clear.
Yeah.
So...
And they went 1-0 up as
yeah,
well.
just... I don't think it's sportsmen will never say that they weren't 100% prepared and didn't give it 100% and whatever, but... it's only natural, like you say, isn't it? But I think Liverpool are also a bit lucky not lucky, but you look at who they've got to play, and they've got to play one of the worst Leicester teams ever, haven't they? Really, was it lost 8 in a row?
Not scoring at home either.
Yeah,
they are quite poor. Like
Ruud van Nistelrooy's still in charge at the moment. Will he still be there by next Sunday? We'll wait and see. Tottenham have had an awful season. They've still got to come to Anfield. West Ham, James Pearce mentioned this statistic before. I think they won 1 of the last 53 or something at Anfield.
That was 3-0, wasn't it? When Lovren gave them
Lovren was doing step-overs on the halfway line. So they've got a fairly favourable fixture list, and obviously they've got to play Arsenal as well. Don't need to win that one, just don't lose it. And yeah, they'll get over the line.
That's it. They've got the 7 games left. If they win 3 and one of them is against Arsenal, that's it. Done and dusted. But yeah. In answer to your question a lot earlier on, I don't think it makes any odds about Arsenal in the Champions League. If anything, it might bolster them because it gives them some confidence that they might be able to do something. But Real Madrid could win 4-0 in the second leg. You know what Real Madrid are like? They'll conjure something up. They normally do. A friend of the podcast, Sanjay Mystery, says he was worried about Salah not signing. Let's hope he celebrates with a few goals against West Ham. Now, it's only against United, Man United that is, that he scored more goals. He's got 16 against United. He's got 13 against West Ham. Just loves it against them.
He does, yeah. I've seen a stat before from Duncan Alexander that said in the 2020s, Salah is 7th on the all-time list of goal scorers at Old Trafford.
Really?
Yeah, which is remarkable, really. But yeah, no, he does tend to enjoy himself against West Ham, doesn't he? He got, how many did he get? 2, was it? In December?
I think it was 1, but I remember I gave him the 10 out of 10 in the
it was just ridiculous. It was the assist for Jota, wasn't it? Yeah.
Just ridiculous. And he got an assist for Gakpo as well with that turn.
Yeah, that's right. And no team, trying to get this statistic right as well, another one of James Pearce's pearlers. No Premier League team has ever lost 5, ever conceded 5 to the same team in the same season. So Liverpool have got the opportunity to do that this season. Haven't beaten them in the League Cup.
I don't think that'll be happening. I think under Graham Potter they've become a bit of a different proposition. Quite like Graham Potter.
Yeah.
He seems to. The problem with his teams that they never know how to score, though they are quite good.
Must admit though, I have no idea how West Ham are getting on.
They're kind of just there, aren't they? That's the thing. This is probably, if you look at Liverpool's fixtures, this is the one where the other team just really doesn't have anything to play for.
Yeah.
Leicester will probably be playing to stay up when they play Liverpool. Tottenham will have the kind of Europa League if they're still in it. If either way,
how did that finish last night? I haven't had a chance to check.
1-1 finished, yeah.
So keeps them honest.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Maybe make changes.
Tottenham. Arsenal we know about. Chelsea will be trying to get into the Champions League. Brighton will be trying to get into Europe. And
Chelsea, yeah.
Who knows about Crystal Palace? They might have lost or won an FA Cup final by that point on the last day. So this is probably the one where you think, although West Ham did win at Arsenal. So
they did. That is true, yeah.
And that's probably the result on that weekend. We've spoken about this before, that Liverpool's gap could have expected to have been closed and it ended up being extended.
That was the not necessarily a turning point, but
it could be a defining point.
Stopped it from being a turning point, if you see what I mean. Yeah.
It was more of a staying still point.
Yeah.
Stationary point. All right, we'll talk about... Do you want to talk about West Ham now? Do you want to talk about the game? Do you have anything else you want to get off your chest?
No.
Can we just have a little chat now? We would normally be bouncing off somebody else, but as I said, they couldn't bother turning up.
No, come on. I suppose we'll have to talk about West Ham, won't we?
Yeah, well, the Fulham game wasn't great, certainly with the individual errors.
We spoke about that on Monday.
Yeah, we did, but I'm building up to it.
Sorry.
Come on, give me a chance. You don't host this very often,
No,
do you? Yeah.
Good to see you dusting off the hosting duties. Like
Well,
you've never been away.
Yeah, exactly. I used to do it years ago before we had videos and nonsense.
remember,
Just doing it around the phone. Still do it for the European away sometimes. Well, that's when our producer can be bothered uploading it in time. He's normally just like, I'm on a day off today.
He's coming in shorts today, which is outrageous.
Exactly, yeah. I wish you could all see that.
Are you referring to me?
Here we go.
Back on the mic. Yeah. I've been criticised about 3 times in this podcast.
He was trying to goad you into saying something.
Well, here we go.
Worked.
I'm on the
worked.
mic. Poor Gorst having a go at me because there was no Mo Salah picture on the screen. You wouldn't even be able to see it anyway with the position of it.
That was more of a productive criticism, wasn't it?
I've been nothing but positive about your hosting duties.
It's more, we're being nice about it.
It's more critical of Joe Rimmer for not being here.
That's what I was, yeah. I didn't mention him by name, but now you have.
Okay.
Anyway, we've got another, just before we go on to West Ham, sorry. Carriad 42, is it? Is that what it says? Yeah. If Trent and Nunes go, Nunes being Darwin Nunes, we can lower the wage bill massively, which means you can bring in an extra 3 or 4 players without breaking the bank. Interesting one, that, because I think Nunes, his transfer fee has been fully paid off now, I think. I'm pretty sure it has. That'd be 85.2 million or something like that. So he was already going to be the most expensive player in Liverpool's history. But if Saudi come in, give him a fair whack, obviously Trent would think he's going to go. I don't think Nunes is on anywhere near as much as possibly Trent's on, for obvious reasons.
No, I remember having a conversation with someone back when Nunes signed who will have known about the specifics, and it seemed to be maybe around about 140,000 a week mark for Darwin Nunes, which is not near the top bracket. I think Liverpool have got a lot of players in around the similar sort of brackets, and that tends to be sort of the high end of what a player might come in at, for Liverpool.
Yeah, well, the point being is that the players that they are going to sign aren't going to be on that kind of massive money.
They sort of leave that room for, if you improve, you can earn closer to what Van Dijk is on, as opposed to coming in immediately on it, which is sensible, really. It's the Diogo Jota model. That's sort of been the ideal way Liverpool would prefer it, where you play your way into sort of a higher wage bracket.
Okay, West Ham then. Shall we pick the team? Because there will be changes, because Slot spoke today that Alisson Becker is back available, and he essentially basically said Conor Bradley's starting, because why wouldn't you when you haven't got any other right backs? Yeah,
really good news, isn't it? Buried amongst the good news of Salah after Alisson is back. Surprised he missed how many did he miss? 2 games, was it?
They've got to be careful with him. Like, if you got a head injury, you don't want to, I think in some ways it was 2 things. One, good sense of player welfare, which kind of shows you why perhaps some players have been out for a bit longer than you might have expected, because they want them to be ready. But also, that once again, and I know I could argue, probably one of the goals he could have done a bit better with, but overall, when he's come in, even Kelleher has been very, very good. Yeah. And there was when Alisson was out, no one was like, oh no, that's terrible. It was more like, oh, Kelleher's gone. Yeah.
But Alisson is back in, and I'd like to see Conor Bradley start.
I think he is, isn't he?
Yeah, I think Robertson will keep his place, and Konate and Van Dijk.
Konate, very briefly, he was asked about, Slot was asked about him, because he obviously substituted him in the second half when they were going for a goal, and he's been a bit up and down. He's not the only one, let's be honest, but he has been a little bit up and down, and that goes back to what we were talking before about, is he being a little bit distracted, or should they not be, because they can deal with that in the summer? There's a title to be won.
Yeah, I think it might just be the sort of fluctuations of form.
Because he got subbed at half-time for France as well, didn't he, in the first
there was some injury scare for that, wasn't there? Maybe he's not quite at 100%, I don't know. But he wasn't really at the races, was he, against Fulham? But he wasn't the only one, so wouldn't dig him out too much. But it'd be good to see him putting in a performance more like, the sort of earlier season form.
I'd play Konate. Konate. I think if you're going to, this is one game where you can take him out. I think this might be one, and it could be good with the pair of them. At midfield then? Yeah,
I think I'm going to give Szoboszlai a bit of a breather, actually. I think he's run himself into the ground, hasn't he? And he is Liverpool's marathon man, but at some stage, even he has to, be protected a bit. So I'll start Curtis further forward and keep Alexis McAllister. I'm going to call him Alexis. Alexis McAllister. Yeah. And Ryan Gravenberch in midfield.
Yeah, I agree with that. And up front?
Gakpo just wasn't at it for me at Fulham. Hasn't really been the same player since that injury against Everton. So Diaz gets a start. I'm sticking with Jota, and because I think he's probably the best of a bad bunch. Sounds like a harsh way of phrasing it, but he's certainly the better of the two at the moment. And obviously Mo Salah on the right.
I agree with that as well. Any score prediction? Well, what is your score prediction?
Fancy West Ham to actually give Liverpool a bit of a scare, you know. Jared Bono seems to
He does well against
show
Liverpool,
up,
doesn't he?
he?
Yeah.
I'll say 3-1 Liverpool.
Well, funny, 3-1 is exactly what I was going to say.
West
Ham
take the lead.
Yeah, they might equalise, and it will be Bowen, won't it?
Yeah.
They've got a lot of players who kind of up and down. I mean, is Paqueta available?
No, actually.
Wouldn't
I
put- I
haven't
wouldn't-
really thought.
wouldn't put your money on that.
No, less of it.
Yes.
Mohamed Kudus is a good player.
He is, but again, he's a bit up and down this season, isn't he? Because he was somebody that Liverpool linked with quite strongly last summer. But, you know, that's if you find out over a longer period of time how good players are and bringing it right back to where we started. Mohamed Salah, over a long period of time, quite good at football.
Yes.
Well, that should do us. Thanks if you've tuned in and listened. No thanks if you didn't turn up to join us. And that'll do us. And we will see you again. Hang on, what am I supposed to say now, Ian? Come on, is Theo doing a post-match one? He's not there, is he?
Theo's not available, no.
He's not available, so we're not doing one. So join us on Monday for the next edition of the Blood Red Podcast. Bye.